If you were ever captivated by the thrilling cases in the Rockford files, you will be even more stunned to know that its stars were caught up in a real-life case more terrible than any script: terrifying violence, fortunes wiped out, and shocking deaths. What really happened to them? Let's explore the truth and honor the legacies they left behind. Let's dive in. James Garner as Jim Rockford. James Scott Garner was born on April 7, 1928, in Norman, Oklahoma. When he was 46 years old, he transformed into Jim Rockford in the detective series The Rockford Files, portraying a smart but troubled private investigator, becoming an icon of 1970s American television. Yet few knew that behind that image was a man carrying many hidden wounds. Entering the acting profession, Garner continuously endured injuries to his knees, back, and shoulders due to overly demanding action scenes in the Rockford Files, leading to painful, prolonged surgeries that forced him to rely on painkillers for years. This physical pain, added to pressure from film studios and financial lawsuits, pushed Garner into crisis, causing his marriage to Lois Clark, his wife of nearly 6 decades, to crack at times, forcing them to separate to find some quiet space again. Even so, they managed to keep their bond, even when Garner continued to affirm his name through Murphy's Romance, 1985, and then Space Cowboys, 2000, with Clint Eastwood, despite his declining health from heart disease and a severe stroke in 2008. He once compared his marriage to military service. Everyone complains but still wants to re-enlist, and that seemed true for Garner, because beneath the strong shell was still a soul longing for peace. On July 19, 2014, James Garner passed away in his home in Los Angeles after a heart attack at the age of 86. All of Hollywood mourned a talent who spent his life torn between glory and darkness, leaving behind a net worth of about $20 million USD, along with film memorabilia as proof of an extraordinary journey. Joe Santos as Dennis Becker. Joe Santos, birth name Joseph John Minieri Jr., was born on June 9, 1931 in Brooklyn. When he was 43 years old, Santos left a deep impression by taking on the role of Sergeant and later Lieutenant Dennis Becker in the Rockford Files, the close friend of Detective Jim Rockford, becoming a familiar face to millions of American viewers. His down-to-earth and strong character on screen was in stark contrast to a real life full of knots and challenges. In childhood, Joe lived with his mother, a singer and nightclub owner, experiencing an early lack of a father's love, then later having to change his surname to that of his stepfather. When he grew up, he wore the uniform as a soldier in the Korean War, witnessing much death, which left psychological scars hard to heal. After returning, Santos pursued acting while living in poverty, doing all sorts of manual labor before being lucky enough to get introduced by Al Pacino to a small role in The Panic in Needle Park, 1971, which opened the path for him into Hollywood. But the spotlight could not completely drive away misfortune. His marriage to Cuban wife Maria Montero lasted 3 decades but was full of cracks, ending painfully when she passed away in 1988, leaving an irreparable void. After that, Santos struggled with old age as work opportunities became fewer, finances were tight, and his health declined because of heart disease, even though he still tried to appear in The Sopranos, 2004, as one last effort to affirm his self-worth. On March 18, 2016, just 2 days after a heart attack struck him down, Joe Santos passed away in Santa Monica at the age of 84. His remaining net worth was estimated at around $500,000 USD, mostly wrapped up in a small house and film memorabilia. Noah Beery Jr. as Joseph Rocky Rockford. Noah Lindsay Beery was born on August 10, 1913 in New York. When he was 59 years old, he stepped into the role of Joseph Rocky Rockford in The Rockford Files in 1974, portraying an honest, down-to-earth, and loving farmer father who could also be hot-tempered, standing by his son, Detective Jim Rockford. Even though it was a supporting role, He became the soul of the show, bringing a warmth and realism that audiences would never forget. Yet in real life, Beery's life was filled with no small amount of sadness. His childhood was tied to the stage, acting with his father in The Mark of Zorro when he was only 7 years old. But behind the family fame, Beery always felt the shadow of his father and uncle was too heavy, weighing down on him. He once tried to break free of the famous Beery name through his own independent roles, but he struggled for decades with supporting characters, rarely reaching star status, which caused him inner conflict and self-doubt. Noah Beery Jr.'s personal life was not smooth either. His first marriage to Maxine Jones ended in heartbreak, leaving deep emotional wounds, and even though he remarried later, he always carried a sense of loneliness within his own home. In his final years, his health declined, and the strain grew worse when a brain stroke gradually left him exhausted and powerless in the face of old age and broken memories. He chose a modest life in Tehachapi, California, away from the spotlight, but also away from most of his colleagues and friends. On November 1st, 1994, Beery took his last breath from a cerebral embolism at the age of 81. He was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the rare quiet of a life that had traveled across the screen for over half a century. A modest estate of around $300,000 USD, along with a simple house in Tehachapi, left a silent void in the hearts of his fans. Stuart Margolan as Angel Martin. Stuart Margolan was born on January 31st, 1940, in Davenport, Iowa. When he was 34 years old, he took on the role of the notorious con man Evelyn Angel Martin in the Rockford Files, an old friend who always dragged Jim Rockford into all sorts of laugh-or-cry trouble. This clever yet roguish role earned him 2 prestigious Emmy Awards, etching the image of a scheming but still sympathetic Angel Martin in the audience's hearts. Few could have guessed that behind the stage lights, Margolan himself was caught up in many circles of tragedy. His childhood was not peaceful, having once been expelled from school in Texas and sent to reform school, enduring family violence that caused Stuart to develop a rebellious personality and substance addiction as a means of escape. Later, those bad habits clung to him, breaking many relationships and pushing him into stormy marriages with lasting mental consequences. Although he tried to find himself again through directing or songwriting, the shadow of addiction repeatedly held him back, making his career sometimes falter and break. In middle age, Margolan continued to prove his talent through the series Mom P.I. and returned in Republic of Doyle, 2013. But a pancreatic cancer diagnosis in 2012 gradually took away his health and hope. In his final years, he tried to keep his private life quiet in Virginia, far from scandal, but loneliness and the burden of illness still surrounded him. Just like Angel Martin, his iconic character could not save him. On December 12, 2022, Stuart Margolan passed away in Staunton, Virginia, at the age of 82, leaving behind an estate estimated at around $400,000 USD with a small house and a few film memorabilia. Nevertheless, the greatest legacy he left behind was the sly smile and the image of the lovable con artist on screen. Isaac Hayes as Gandalf Fitch. Isaac Hayes was born on August 20, 1942, in Tennessee. When he was 34 years old, he took on the role of Gandalf Gandy Fitch in the Rockford Files, bringing to life an old friend of Rockford who had been in prison but was loyal and fierce. But behind that spotlight, Hayes bore much instability. 4 failed marriages, 11 children with tense relationships, and the pressures of fame that made his private life constantly chaotic and full of regrets. From a child who lost his mother, was abandoned by his father, and was raised by his grandparents while struggling from slaughterhouses to nightclubs, Hayes used music as an escape from a harsh life. But even though he rose to legend status, he still had to struggle with psychological wounds and massive debts that led to bankruptcy alongside his third wife, shaking his career during the 1980s. Roles in Escape from New York and the South Park series brought him back into the spotlight, but could not erase the emptiness of a broken family and mounting financial pressure. After a stroke in 2006, Hayes' health quickly declined. On August 10, 2008, he passed away suddenly at the age of 65, right next to a treadmill still running in his home, just 10 days before his 66th birthday. His net worth was estimated at around $4 million when he died, including a luxury home in Memphis and an extensive music copyright portfolio. Michael Lerner as Arnold Love and Dr. Reuben Seelman. Michael Lerner was born on June 22, 1941. When he was 33 years old, he appeared in the Rockford Files as Arnold Love and Dr. Reuben Seelman, portraying characters who were both pragmatic and laced with a signature sense of mockery. He attracted attention with his natural style and engaging acting, then continued to win over audiences with the role of Jack Lipnick in Barton Fink, 1991, which earned him a prestigious Oscar nomination. However, behind that spotlight, Lerner carried many lingering wounds. He never married, lived quietly, and was tormented by tense family relationships, especially with his brother Ken Lerner, which led to prolonged distance and isolation. The pressure of acting, along with constantly feeling misunderstood, made Lerner sink into perpetual loneliness, even when he stood at the height of his career. Age and health began to wear him down, especially as he battled obesity and chronic seizures. Each seizure haunted him with the fear of dying alone, with no partner or loved one nearby. He locked himself away in his house in Burbank, keeping his distance from both Hollywood and his family. On April 8, 2023, Michael Lerner took his last breath at a hospital in Burbank at the age of 81, with the cause confirmed as complications from seizures. He passed away quietly, leaving behind an estate of about $3 million, including his house along with a collection of rare books and vintage cars, as a legacy heavy with memories but also full of regret. Bo Hopkins as John Cooper. Bo Hopkins was born on February 2, 1938, in Greenville, South Carolina. When he was 36 years old, he joined the Rockford Files in the role of attorney John Cooper, a character who replaced Beth Davenport after Gretchen Corbett left the series in 1978. Hopkins's performance brought to life a strong, decisive, yet compassionate lawyer, unafraid to use legal knowledge to help Rockford get through dangerous situations. His appearance breathed new energy into the story. However, behind that strong exterior, Bo Hopkins carried many heartbreaks. His first marriage to Norma Woodall quickly fell apart when he was just 24 years old, after his wife left with their daughter because she could not accept his acting dreams. This left a deep wound in Hopkins, making him feel regret over his responsibility as a father for decades. It was not until 1989 that he found happiness again with his second wife, Cyan Eleanor Green, and had a son in 1995, but the father-son relationship remained full of tension because of generational gaps and his own quick-tempered nature. Hopkins once admitted that he was prone to outbursts of anger and went through a period of alcohol abuse to soothe career pressure, which further fractured his private life. After 6 years away from acting, he returned to the screen, but his health had declined considerably with heart disease as a constant threat. The strains in marriage, along with being unable to deeply connect with his children, made him feel lonely and lost at times, even though his artistic achievements were still admired by the public. On May 28, 2022, Bo Hopkins passed away after a heart attack at the age of 84 in California. He left behind an estimated net worth of about $2 million, including his house in Van Nuys and a valuable collection of film memorabilia. Ned Batty as Leon Fielder and Al Brennan. Ned Batty was born on July 6, 1937 in Louisville, Kentucky. When he was 37 years old, he appeared in the Rockford Files as Leon Fielder, a clever con man in the two-part episode Profit and Loss in 1974. The character, Leon Fielder, also known as Al Brennan, was the operator of a sophisticated financial scam, gradually pulling Jim Rockford into a dangerous, trap-filled investigation. Batty brilliantly conveyed the sly, smooth, yet calculating nature of the character, creating a formidable opponent and adding tension and suspense to the storyline. Behind the screen, however, Ned Batty faced countless lingering pains. He married 4 times, but the first 3 marriages ended in breakups that left gaps hard to fill, making Batty carry a heavy sense of failure in his family life, even though his career soared like a kite. A brilliant career with more than 160 roles also forced him to sacrifice closeness with his 8 children, leading to many conflicts and inner struggles that lasted for decades. The pressure of being Hollywood's busiest man left him emotionally drained, easily falling into loneliness and depression even while outwardly maintaining a strong image. More than once, Batty admitted he collapsed under expectations that were too great, both from fans and from himself. He had to fight through mental crises, especially in his later years as his health declined and the glow of his acting career faded. His series of broken relationships left Batty with a sense of being lost and adrift, even though his final wife, Sandra Johnson, was there by his side until the end, trying to ease the pain he carried. On June 13, 2021, Ned Batty took his last breath at his home in Los Angeles, closing 83 years of both glory and deep unease. Among the legacy he left behind, in addition to a vast cinematic imprint, he also owned an estimated net worth of about $5 million USD, held within his Los Angeles home, and a precious collection of acting memorabilia. Simon Oakland as Vern St. Cloud and Bayrow. Simon Oakland was born on August 28, 1915 in Brooklyn, New York. When he was 62 years old, he joined the Rockford Files as Vern St. Cloud, a boastful and arrogant private investigator who always tried to overshadow and compete with Jim Rockford in various tangled cases. Oakland portrayed Vern with a sharp voice, a superior attitude, yet still a pitiful touch that made audiences both hate and feel curious whenever he appeared. Outside the screen, Simon Oakland's life was filled with complicated unspoken struggles. Originally a violinist, he once dreamed of becoming a professional musician but was swept into acting, which he himself bitterly called an unwilling choice. His hot temper, along with career insecurities, made it difficult for him to keep long-term relationships, even with the mother of his only daughter. The marriage did not succeed, and he and his daughter had little contact, leaving an emotional void that stretched through most of his life. In the early 1980s, when colon cancer began to slowly destroy his health, Oakland chose to stay silent, hiding the illness even from close colleagues. Behind the strong appearance on screen, he frequently had to fight physical and mental pain alone in a small, lonely house in Cathedral City, California. On August 29, 1983, just one day after his 68th birthday, Simon Oakland took his last breath, ending a stormy artistic life. His estate was valued at around $400,000 USD, mostly wrapped up in a small house and an old convertible from the 1960s. Bruce Kirby as Aaron Friedler and Carl. Bruce Kirby was born on April 28, 1925. When he was 49 years old, he appeared in the Rockford Files in 3 episodes with roles such as Aaron Friedler and Carl, portraying a law enforcement officer who was intelligent, experienced, sometimes stubborn, but still full of humanity. Thanks to his authentic acting, Kirby contributed to building the deep and dramatic world of police officers around the character Jim Rockford. Behind the spotlight, Bruce Kirby had to brace himself through a stormy marriage, with lingering conflicts that eventually led to separation, leaving deep emotional wounds that were hard to heal. Although he had 2 sons, including actor Bruno Kirby, the generational gap and his obsession with work made it difficult for him to maintain a truly complete family. The pressures of acting, dense filming schedules, and the feeling of being forgotten as old age approached made him endure much stress and question his own worth. In his twilight years, Kirby chose to live quietly in a small house in Los Angeles, carrying the pride of his career but also heavy with loneliness. He still took on a few small roles to hold on to his passion, but his declining health and the regrets of family relationships never truly let go of him. Bruce Kirby passed away quietly on January 24, 2021, at the age of 95, with the cause not publicly disclosed, leaving behind an estimated net worth of about $300,000 USD, including his old house in Los Angeles and a few precious film memorabilia. Dennis Berkeley, as bartender, and Howard. Dennis Berkeley was born on September 10, 1945 in Van Nuys, Los Angeles. When he was 31 years old, he appeared in the Rockford Files in roles such as the bartender and Howard, bringing to life the image of a big, strong Southern man, but still carrying a touch of humor and everyday relatability. With a deep Texas-accented voice and an impressive giant build, Berkeley authentically portrayed working-class characters, sometimes feeling lost in the complicated world of Detective Rockford. His natural and easygoing presence helped highlight the multi-layered social backdrop of the show. Berkeley's real life was as troubled as his on-screen roles. He married young to Laura Alderdice, and together they raised 2 children, but financial burdens always weighed on them because his acting income was inconsistent, along with the stress of being typecast in supporting roles, which gnawed at Berkeley for many years. He longed for a chance to take on deeper lead roles, but his enormous build and typecast image often prevented that dream, creating long-lasting tension in the family. Health issues began to close in on Berkeley after turning 50, especially diabetes and recurring heart pains, forcing him to slow down his work and face the fear of losing his standing in the entertainment industry. Even so, the love of his wife and children and fond memories from films somewhat soothed the loneliness when his health declined. He still took on the occasional small role to hold on to his passion, but his weakening heart made every effort more fragile. Dennis Berkeley died of a heart attack on July 14, 2013 in Sherman Oaks, closing 67 years of a life with no shortage of struggles. He left behind an estimated net worth of about $350,000 USD, including a small house in Los Angeles, some handmade furniture, and cherished film props, as a simple marker of a bumpy yet sincere journey of a down-to-earth artist. Gretchen Corbett as Beth Davenport. Gretchen Corbett was born on August 13, 1945. She was 27 years old when she became associated with the role of attorney Beth Davenport in the Rockford Files. In this series, Gretchen portrayed Beth, a smart, dedicated lawyer and at times a conflicted girlfriend of Jim Rockford, who often protected him against dangerous legal troubles. Her character helped deepen the gritty yet humane portrait of society in this popular series, becoming an image of a strong, opinionated woman in a challenging world. Off-screen, Gretchen Corbett faced no small number of quiet challenges. As a female artist in the harsh environment of Hollywood, she went through exhausting years trying to maintain her reputation, accepting the sacrifice of her personal life to sustain her career. Her relationship with Robin Gamble also did not last, leaving her with the burden of raising a child alone and many worries about financial security. Even though she was beloved by the public, Gretchen could not avoid moments of loneliness when the stage lights turned off and she returned to a quiet home without much companionship. She also experienced health insecurities and went through times of financial struggle, especially when the entertainment industry entered a downturn and roles for middle-aged women became scarce. The pressure of existing in a glamorous but ruthless environment caused Gretchen to collapse more than once, forcing her to return to stage work and community projects such as the Haven Project to find renewed meaning and keep her passion alive. Her dedication to helping disadvantaged children and supporting local theater helped her sustain her spirit despite personal losses and instability. Today, at the age of 78, Gretchen Corbett is still living peacefully, maintaining a fairly simple life in Oregon. Her net worth is estimated to be around $1 million USD, mainly from royalties, film projects, and teaching theater. A modest figure compared to her former glory, but one that honestly reflects the journey she has traveled. Tom Celich as Lance White. Tom Celich was born on January 29, 1945. He was 34 years old when he took on the role of Lance White in the Rockford Files. In this series, Celich portrayed Lance, a kind-hearted, optimistic private investigator colleague whose sunny outlook was so extreme it became humorous, completely contrasting with Jim Rockford's gritty, realistic style, creating a uniquely charming presence for audiences. The role of Lance White not only helped Celich impress television viewers, but also paved the way for him to break out later with Magnum, P.I., and a string of other films. Although he was famous, Tom Celich could not avoid emotional wounds in his private life. His first marriage ended in heartbreak, leaving him with feelings of emptiness and pain, which made his early years under the Hollywood spotlight even more pressured. As he moved from playing Lance White to becoming a global star, he had to brace himself for endless expectations, from being seen as the symbol of masculinity to bearing the burden of maintaining his reputation. Those periods once made Celich feel stressed, and he had to work hard to find a balance between his career, his new marriage to Jilly Joan Mack, and family life. Moreover, his massive fame left him bewildered at times, especially under constant media scrutiny of every move and statement. Celich once admitted that maintaining privacy and protecting family happiness after the spotlight was an extremely difficult journey. The pressure of being boxed into the perfect gentleman image sometimes made him feel lonely, forcing him to fight to keep hold of his true self. Fortunately, his love for acting and determination helped him sustain a strong career through the decades. Currently, at the age of 80, Tom Celich still lives with his wife at their Hidden Valley Ranch in California, where he spends much of his time with family and tending to his garden. His net worth is estimated at around 45 million USD, including valuable real estate in California and Hawaii, as well as income from decades of acting, producing, and advertising contracts. Tom Atkins as Lieutenant Alex D.L. Tom Atkins was born on November 13, 1935. He left a deep impression on audiences through the role of Lieutenant Alex D.L. in the Rockford Files at the age of 39. In the series, he portrayed a principled, tough police officer who often clashed with Jim Rockford's unconventional investigation methods, creating dramatic, captivating situations. This role not only made Atkins a familiar cop face on the small screen, but also opened the door for him to dive deeper into action and horror films over the following decades. However, what seemed like a smooth career was not without its painful and simmering tensions. Atkins once faced enormous pressure from being typecast as officers or authority figures, which crushed his dreams of exploring more diverse roles many times. In the early days of leaving the Broadway stage for Hollywood, he struggled to find work, confronting financial insecurity and the sense of being ignored by Hollywood. Something he has often shared left his self-esteem deeply wounded. Atkins's personal life was not completely calm either. He admitted he had experienced much stress balancing family and work, especially with constant travel between Pittsburgh and Los Angeles to pursue projects. The fiercely competitive entertainment environment, along with the heavy work schedule, pushed him into states of fatigue and exhaustion more than once, even though on the outside he maintained a calm and tough appearance. Luckily, his persistence and passion for the stage became his anchor to overcome the hardest times. Currently, at the age of 89, Tom Atkins is still acting, recently appearing in Creepshow 2023, serving as a testament to his extraordinary resilience. His net worth is estimated at around 1.5 million USD, mainly from television, film, and theater projects, along with real estate in Peters Township, Pennsylvania, enough to help him enjoy his final years in peace. Did these heroes truly win or lose in their own lives? Leave a comment, share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep exploring the untold dark sides of Hollywood. Are you ready for the next story?